All right, now we're going to be dealing with chapter 11. Chapter 11 introduces the first and second person pronouns, plus we also get some additional forms for the third declension. Notice the exegetical insight from Darrell Bach and the overview, which will be helpful in letting you know what's coming up, what's going to be taking place there. So we move then into the section on English. I remind you the importance of the English grammar that Dr. Mounce reminds us of, refreshes us on, and so it is, I think, especially valuable here. So I want you to pay very close attention to that, how we deal with pronouns, first and second personal pronouns in English. And then we move to the Greek. Note that is again the grammar is always important, so read it very carefully. Notice the forms on in section 11.6. What Dr. Mounce is introducing here is the I and you pronouns. That's first and second. We'll meet the third personal pronouns a little bit later on. These pronouns are kind of easy to recognize. You recognize the word ego. Our English word ego comes from that. That refers to the first person, and then mu and me, both of those kind of remind you of me, don't they? And those are the different cases there. And then in the plural, if you'll notice, the plural form is hey mas, hey mon, hey men, hey mas, all beginning with an eta. That's the mark of the first personal pronoun. And then in the second, it really stands out the dominant vowel throughout the singular and the plural in all cases, with a couple of exceptions, is the U sound. The upsilon, you will see su, soy, se, those would be the two exceptions. And then all of the plural forms begin with the upsilon, humes, humon, humin, humas. So I think you'll find them easy to remember, learn the vocabulary well, learn the forms, and then could be responsible for those forms because they are important. And also you'll want to put them on a card and or put them in your notebook and keep up with them just as a reference. The next section, 11.7, has to do with the form, and where he discusses that and the accents that are used there, and then he suggests in 11.9 how to parse these. Please note that because it is good advice. And then 11.10 is translation procedure, and he is simply pointing out if the pronoun is the subject or the direct object, then you treat it like you would any other subject or direct object. Remember, it's not always stated in Greek, but when it is stated, it usually is emphasis, and it, of course, you will want to just follow his direction there. I want to take a moment to make a little comment about the little professor that he includes here. There's a lot of helpful notes there. Many of them have to do with the differences in Koine Greek or Hellenistic Greek and the modern Greek. So it's interesting to take a look at that. So I encourage you to do that. All right, halftime review is a review of the pronouns. Be sure to go through that and make sure you understand. If there's anything you don't understand, then go back and take a look at it again. And then more on the third declension. What he does here is to introduce you to a few more forms, and so you just want to look at those, charis and phos, and elpis, and then sarx we've already seen before. But these words for grace and light and hope are all used very frequently, and so you want to make sure that that you get familiar with both the nominative and genitive forms of those in the vocabulary, and then you can deal with that like with other third declension nouns with the charts, ending charts that you have, and just by simple repetition. In 11:13, he throws in some of those really great. I guess we in New Orleans we'd call this lagniappe, but it's some information about how Greek has developed. It's interesting and helpful. You'll be surprised how much of this you'll pick up as you move through the course if you'll pay attention to it. And so anyway, read carefully what he says in 11:13 and in 14. And then he gives you two final patterns, and both of these are also important. The first one, pater, and patros. This would be for the word for father, and then hudor, hudatas. This is the word for water. As you can see, both of those would be pretty frequent too. So you need to make sure you understand that vocabulary. Then note the summary, pay attention to that. Again, use the summaries as a checkup, just for you, a personal checkup, to make sure that you're getting it, you're getting an understanding of what he's talking about. And then when you do, move on. If you don't, then go back and take a look at the chapter again. Look at the vocabulary. Again, not quite as much as we have had on other occasions, but I want to run through this, and then I want to come back and point out a couple of words that we need to pay attention to. The first one is adelphos. If you'll repeat that as we say it, and then on. This is an untranslatable particle. Many people try to translate it, but it's a particle, and it's used to make a definite statement contingent. And we'll learn more about that as we go along and as we look at the exercises. And then aner, and the genitive form is andros. And then ecclesia, you will recognize that as the church word, or the gathering, or the assembly or congregation. And then elpis, that's the hope word. And then exo, that is an adverb. We have not talked a great deal about adverbs, but it functions very much like the adverb in English, and it means without is what it means. You can see it's related to ek, which is out. And then epi, used with genitive, dative, and accusative, and you see the meanings of that preposition. And then hemes, which is the first personal plural pronoun. It means we. And then telema and telematas, and it would be the genitive form. That's will or desire. That's a word that's used pretty frequently. And then ide, and it is a word that means to see or behold. There's another form of it, idu. These are verbs, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute. And then kalos means beautiful, and then meter and metros. This is a metros. This is the word for mother. He did not introduce that form, but it follows that same third declension pattern as well. And then ude is another of those combination particles, putting two particles together. If you just learn literally, u means not, de means and or even, and so this would mean and not, or not even, or something like that, depending on the context. And then the word for father is pater. I did want to mention the two verbs that he uses here, and ask you to note carefully those footnotes that are connected. It's footnote 21 and 22 and 23, I think it is. But read those very carefully. He'll tell you something about what those footnotes, what those verbs mean, and why he includes them here in the vocabulary. As I flip the page, I remember that there are some more words on page 98, so don't miss that. On page 98, you have pistis, pisteos. Pisteos is the genitive form. Hudor, huditas, and then humes. Those former two are a third declension. Then humes is the second personal plural pronoun, and then phos, photos, light, and then charis, caritas, grace, and then hode is here. So that takes care of the vocabulary. So work hard on that, if you will. Look at the exercises in chapter 12. It's described in the syllabus. Also, in chapter 11, exercise 11, and it's described in the syllabus as well as in the PowerPoint. And your specific assignment there is to do the parsing and then translate sentences 1, 4, 5, 7, and 8. The weekly quiz, you need to review that. You want to pay particular attention to the paradigm on page 85 and the section on first and second personal pronouns, as well as the vocabulary in chapters 10 and 11. And then once you have worked on that, close the book and take the quiz. All right?